right? I mean...
And these were good guards because they came with the assistant warden, who was the one honest guy there.
Right. So risky, right? And they're electrocuted. First off, and also, Jack Palance's goons let out a bunch of prisoners. Now, I'll assume maybe they were all on payroll, right?
Yeah.
But if they are questioned, right, if this goes awry, who's to say that they aren't going to talk? Or maybe they're conditioned to know they're going to get murdered or something. But I mean, there's so many risks involved. They could talk about it. It could be discovered that this happened. But yeah, so they electrocute him. That was interesting. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, did they do experiments to know how to do this enough that they don't kill them? Because Jack Palance doesn't want them killed. He wants them to remain in prison and be punished. He doesn't say what makes you think they'll survive. He says what makes you think they're ever going to get out.
Yeah.
I suppose that could be considered ambiguous, but...
It makes no sense. It really doesn't.
I think that he wanted them to stay in prison indefinitely. It's the level of risk involved, just huge.
I have another question for you. In this film, they are always outnumbered, outmatched, getting killed, getting shot at. They've been shot. They're getting beat up in a prison. They're having cars. Like when the cars drive at them, what does he say to him about the jewelry? When the one guy drives up here, wait, I have a really good quote here. Oh, glad you could drop in. And he's like, do you like jewelry? And then the guy says, F you. And then Ray goes, I prefer blondes.
Yeah.
And do you think that hurts the movie? Because when they're in prison, they're quipping. When they're about to fight, they're quipping. When they're escaping, they're quipping. Now, it does make for a very quick viewing experience. This movie does go by rather quickly, but it takes there's no tense moments in this film. There's no
gravity.
There's not 1 ounce, John, of tension in this. I never once was on the edge of my seat. If anything, I was just reclining in my seat because I'm just so relaxed watching it. Now, that may make for a really good TNT movie, but I think it hurts the overall effectiveness of it. So, I mean, Keanu and Sandra Bullock, they had jokes in Speed, but you felt the tension. True Lies.
Right.
We talked about that on the podcast. There's jokes there, but you also feel the tension in it. This one, not 1 ounce of tension.
Right.
Not one. And is that good or bad?
You are meant to never have a moment where you forget that you know the heroes get out of this fine.
Yeah. Is that good or bad?
Is that bad? I don't know that it's bad, but I think that it keeps you from being a slightly better film, and it locks you more into this movie or flickdom.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, and it's highly rewatchable and very enjoyable. When we talk about how great Tango and Cash is, we keep it to generalities, and then we talk about how crazy it is. But when we talk about True Lies, I can talk about how funny and how crazy so many parts are, but then I can talk about how grand a lot of like the family protective moments were, or how satisfying and warm it is when after their kind of marital issues and discourse, when he says, come on, baby, and she jumps and gets his hand out of that limo before it goes off of the broken bridge and the keys. Like you feel so good when this happens. So in this movie, yeah, it has a lot of fun things that are fun to watch. You feel good because it's fun, but there's no emotional journey whatsoever.
None.
The Fifth Element, totally bonkers.
Yeah.
Totally bonkers, but has a lot of very heartfelt, warm, touching, memorable, affecting scenes. This has zero of that as well. So it's not just the jokes and the action keeping it from anything that could be mistaken for a film, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that there is no heart in it whatsoever. These guys they don't overcome anything internally in this whole movie.
They're the same people.
Right. Nothing has changed. They overcame a bad guy, but there's no personal victory at all. Maybe they made friends, I don't know, but they're really still kind of kitschy frenemies anyway. They're just less enemy than friend at the end.
Yeah.
They're always going to be quippy. At Thanksgiving, if he marries Terry Hatcher,
oh, it's going to be a nightmare.
They're still going to be at each other about everything. Yo, you can't baste a turkey like that. You got to do it. You know, there's always going to be something going on.
Let me deep fry this turkey. What? Deep fry? You know,
you're going to blow the house up. This is my house. I pay the mortgage. She just lives here.
She pays rent and lives there, and he just walks in whenever. Jeez Louise. Now I want to bring something else up too, where when I think about, let's see, Predator, you have this elite force of alphas who go and they decimate that force, that first force that they attack. So you establish them as alphas, and then you kill them. Then you have Arnold. Then you get Arnold freaking out and having to go back to nature to win. That is effective because you build alphas, they lose, then they have to do that. You have the same thing with Aliens, where you have this elite group coming in, they get it handed to them, they all die. Then at the end still, you have this queen who's an amazing villain. That, you know, the fight between the Queen Alien and Ripley and the Power Loader. I think that's sometimes what separates and Hans Gruber too. I think Die Hard, Hans Gruber. So you have Bruce Willis. He shows up to Bonnie Bedelia's place, John McClane, and there's scenes though in the movie where he's like, "You're such an idiot. Why do you do this to yourself?" Remember when he argues with her? He's like, "You're so dumb. All you want to do is see your wife." And then when he has the glass in his feet and he's talking with Reginald VelJohnson about how he shot the kid and he thinks he's gonna die, and then Gruber almost tricks him with the gun. Then they play that joke. There's learning in it. There's tension. There's a good villain. You have a hero that's somewhat three-dimensional. Those are the classics in my mind, right? Those are A tier. Then you have Tango and Cash, which is the cult classic tier, which is the FX. If it's on at 2:00, you leave it on because there's no stakes, which makes it so. Sometimes some of these movies are very draining. As much as I love True Lies, all the scenes with Bill Pullman with his wife, it's beautiful, but it's draining. This movie, there's nothing draining. There's no anything in it, so it makes it a very breezy, rewatchable film. Which, like you said, it puts in the film's flicks territory, but far away from the action classics. Not every movie. I know it's weird. Some people go watch Joe Dirt. And they're like, well, it's not an Oscar winner, but it's good. It's like, well, I never thought Joe Dirt was going to be an Oscar winner. So I don't think Tango and Cash wanted to be that way. I'm just saying what separates it from the best.
When you have pickup trucks with missile launchers, I think we've departed from the Oscar conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, you know, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's good. It's like, I don't think Tango and Cash thought it was. And I think it really wanted to entertain, and it does. But it's very... I hate using this word, though, but it's very uneven. This is not one movie that we're watching. And it is separated from the best.
You commented 4 directors.
Yeah.
So could you expound on that?
Yeah, here, I have all my notes up here. So, let's see.
Because I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, so let's see. Well, it was the 80s. Tango was something of a trouble production with director Andrei Chonkolovsky. Sorry about that, I messed that up. Replaced for reshoots by Albert Magnoli, who did Purple Rain. Magnoli, I probably said that wrong again, but such replacements and rewrites probably aren't to blame for the picture's general incoherence, which culminates in the era's that. But then that guy, Albert Magnoli, he got fired because he went over budget on the reshoots that he was doing. So then Sly helped take it home, and then another editor came in to direct it. So all told, there were 4 different people who had direction in this movie.
What a tortured production.
But what's tortured about? What's tortured?
Well, I mean, just the behind the scenes, right?
No. I'm just saying. Like, you know what I love though? If this was The Revenant, okay, that's a tortured production. I get why people quit and come in and out. Mad Max Fury Road. But this movie, it had a big budget to begin with. It had big stars. I just don't understand the. This is the main thing I also want to ask you. The original director wanted to make the movie very serious. There is not that movie in this movie. Not one bit of this movie is serious. So maybe when they say serious, he didn't want trucks with rocket launchers.
Sure.
And that scene reeks of reshoots.
Or mirror rooms.
He probably wanted these two cops, relatively grounded, $1 billion in cocaine, go to prison, have a hell of a time in there, get out, go on a small-scale thing of revenge, and there's no room of mirrors. But they had some very expensive reshoots, so I bet you it was the Chucks. I bet you, like, he didn't want that. They wanted more. They brought another director. That director went over budget because they had monster trucks. They brought in another director. Sly finished it. So yeah, maybe when they say grounded and let more serious, I'm going to say this the 8th time again, no cavernous weapons labs. No smelling of mice. He just wanted a meat and potatoes escape plan-esque movie, I guess. Not this. Oofta. But I love it. Watching this again. Megan was coming in.
Fun.
Yeah, Megan was coming in and out of this movie. She was working on something. And so she was coming in and out watching the various scenes of this movie. And she's like, what? Not in a bad way. She was like, wait, I thought they were in prison. And
are you watching the same movie?
Yeah. They were in prison. So in the beginning, she saw the cops battling. And then they were in prison. She's like, why are they in prison? And I was like, well, because this happened. And then later on, when there was the monster truck rally, she's like, what's happening now? And I'm like, I can't even. I tried to explain this movie to Megan in like 20 words or less. 2 awesome cops are framed for murder, go to jail, escape, have a monster truck rally.
Defeat the mirror room villain.
Right.
Then they defeat the wizard.
Yeah. They defeat the wizard. It's beautiful. I love it. I'm glad we talked about it. I mean, it's just a gnarly little thing. And I like the guns. I like that Kurt Russell's like, who messed with my sight? Someone messed with his sight. Like this guy controls everything in this town. And then what about the bump uglies line? You're like, oh man, Stallone. Like, you bumping uglies with my sister? And you're like,
I'll say, there was one departure for me of being in this bonkers movie, and that actually was when Kurt Russell's talking about his sight being off. I feel like at that point, if he is that aware, right, that he just picked it up and caught that. It's not like he was at a gun range. He just knew this is wrong. I feel like he's going to stop and look and realize that the serial number is like he's going to think of something.
Yeah.
And know this is not his gun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying this is some soundly, exquisitely written thing otherwise, but that was something where I can't rationalize it with Jack Palance's, with Yves Perret's arrogance for why he's doing what he's doing. And they just didn't happen to put it into words for us. But I can read that between the ultra sinister lines. Right. Mm-hmm. But Kurt Russell, I feel like Cash is going to notice this, that he's going to realize something's wrong, and that would have led to. Now, sure, maybe he realizes it's not his gun. That doesn't change the fact that later they have something to go. They have a lead to follow. They go follow that lead, and his gun is there. We get to the same place. It didn't keep us from getting there.
Yeah.
I suppose if you reported it as missing, but even still, the framing was so good with that video editing, right? Right, with the audio editing, he's getting nailed anyway. But there was one little thing. I feel like 1 or 2 lines of dialogue could have clinched that up, just like the Jack Palance. Why don't we just kill them? 1 or 2 lines of dialogue would have gone a long way. But I'm not saying that it hurt the movie. It was just a small flaw, and a very small flaw, and a very Jackson Pollock of an action movie of things sprayed on a wall and presented as a finished product that somehow pleases, right?
It's fun.
It's a very satisfying movie.
Because it's 8 movies. It's like you're getting the best of 4 movies in an hour and a half. And it's not even that long. But
we go back to our Die Hard and True Lies comparisons, or even a Joe Dirt comparison. When this movie's over, I'm just like, yeah, that was fun. Whereas Joe Dirt, like, I'm so happy that he finds resolution and he realizes that this girl liked him the whole time, even though he never thought that something like that was possible. Dennis Leary mentions it to him, the radio host, and it's like a great revelation. And we knew the whole time watching it, but it feels so good. It's so emotionally satisfying, right? True Lies ends. He's tangoing with his wife that he used to be lying to about all this stuff. Now she's in on it and she loves it. And Tom Arnold is complaining from the van that he's tired of being in the van. I'm not going to be in the van. And then you just hear the music